तो जैसे मैंने आपसे सवाल किया था, वो सवाल मेरे दिमाग में सुबह से घूम रहा है. Then why do we celebrate this really important day of International Women's Day? And what is this real hoo-ha all about? Why are we so bothered and why are we so worried and concerned that, we have a day dedicated to women? There must be something that's really important of what we do and what we are doing. और हम क्या कर रहे हैं अपनी जिंदगियों के साथ जो इतनी ज़्यादा इसके ऊपर हम फोकस कर रहे हैं इन सारी बातों के ऊपर कि ख़वातीन का आलमी दिन होना चाहिए. To discuss this thing further, I have some beautiful mothers with me, some beautiful people with me who will be talking about the different aspects of how women, when they are integrated into the system, in society, in the workforce, in the government, what impact does it have? So my first guest, thank you so much for joining us, Jen.
My pleasure.
So Jen has joined us from UK. She has just recently moved to Riyadh. And how are you finding the city?
Well, it's a big change from London, which is where I was born and grew up, but I'm enjoying it. It's great.
Wonderful.
Meeting interesting people like you guys.
Great. So Jen, you were telling me something about what work you were doing. Could you tell us a little bit about that, what you were doing in the UK?
Well, for many years I've worked for the UK government as a civil servant. And the UK government, in many respects, is a great place for women to work because on the face of it, we have equality for women. There are plenty of part-time jobs. There's lots of flexibility to fit around your family. There's great maternity leave. But in some ways, it's also an interesting case study talking about equal rights and women's rights and so on. Because the more senior you get in the UK civil service, the fewer women you find there.
Right.
And although there's a great many part-time jobs, most of those part-time jobs are occupied by women at more junior levels. And even though in the UK, on the political side of government, we've had 2 female prime ministers, we still only have 6 women in cabinet. We have very few female civil servants running government departments. And I think research demonstrates that when you have women around the table making policy, those policies tend to be better suited to women and sort of take account of women's needs better.
Right.
So it's really interesting. In some respects, the UK government is a wonderful place to be as a woman in the workforce, but there's still some way to go.
You're telling me this really good thing about women working there in the government. And you're currently in a country which is very different from that. And you're coming across so many nationalities, people from different, parts of the world, people from the Middle East, people from, India, Pakistan, and other places. What challenges do you see here as somebody who's come from the West?
Well, look, on the face of it, this place looks very different for women, and in terms of, I suppose, the code of dress and what is normal for women in terms of their independence, their ability to go about the city, to drive, to work, it feels like it is much more restricted in Riyadh than in a city like London, where women are more emancipated on the face of it. I'm not very well placed to judge how deep those changes go, but it feels like in the UK, where women do have, on paper at least, and written into legislation, equal rights, equal pay, reproductive rights, the right to education, to work, all of those things, we have a long way to go in terms of making sure that those things are a reality for women in their everyday lives. And also a long way to go to combat, I think, sort of everyday sexism. But I think here there's probably some further way to go in terms of eliminating that everyday sexism and giving women more equal opportunities in every aspect of their lives.
Absolutely. And you pointed out that when you were working for the government in the UK, you had fewer women in top positions. And what do you think is the reason for that?
Well, I suppose now I am a mother myself and I have a family. I think it's probably twofold. One is a lot of women might want to leave the workforce because they have other priorities, and still I think what we call emotional labour in most families tends to fall to the woman. Even if you're not doing the housework yourself, you're probably the one planning and organising it, let alone your children's lives and your husband's lives and the family social life. So I think all of that workload, a lot of it, even in this day and age, tend to fall to women, even if you're lucky enough to have a wonderful partner who wants to do his share. So it might be that women want to step out of work. I think the other aspect is a lack of role models. I mean, really, it becomes more and more difficult as there are fewer and fewer women around the table.
That you've just said, yes, lack of role models, because then again, the challenges that you're talking about are applicable to every and any field. But then if we focus about, how important it is to have women involved as, being part of the government, being policy makers, that's so elemental. Yes, because I'm sure if they are more involved, and as you said that women have their hands full, I'm sure that more policies can be created, more possibilities can be created where women can even, bring their children to work or, have those things working for them where they can manage this better.
Well, I think the workplace in the government and in many other places structurally is still not very flexible. And I think as working mothers, what we know is the one thing you really need is flexibility.
Right.
I think it is still very difficult, even in a fairly progressive working environment like the civil service in the UK, to want quality work but part-time, or a job share, or to be in a very senior role but say, don't call me on a Friday. It's still not the norm. There aren't very many role models. There aren't many men working in that way, although more are also wanting to work part-time and have some flexibility. But I think until that structural issue is addressed about accepting that, especially these days when we can work remotely and people are not really working regular working patterns, it should be possible to be a senior woman in a role who works after bedtime or before the kids get up or while they're at school. But I think it's extremely difficult to go to a job interview and say, I want to do this job, I can do this job, I can be the best at this job, but you won't see me between 3 and 4 o'clock.
And I see that women have to really work hard at selling themselves, at the idea that, it's okay, I can do that, I can match up to it.
And even when you have, in the UK, there's a 9% pay gap. So even if you have these jobs and you get to the position you want to be, you're still going to be paid less than your male colleagues, which is not very motivating, and I suppose contributes to the fact that some women might want to step out of the career because their other half is probably earning more than them. So I think that's another difficult thing when you start a family, is that usually it makes sense for the woman to step back because she's the one who's earning less. So until that pay gap closes, that discussion's not going to change very much.
And how do you think that we can change this scenario?
Well, I think it is a lot about role models. I think it is about women stepping up and doing it and showing that they can and making sure that they bring other women with them, mentoring programs, workplaces having the sort of structural flexibility to cope with different types of working patterns. But also, I suppose we need to do it and we need to step up and demonstrate that it can be done. And hopefully, little by little, we're chipping away, and the more of us who do it, the more opportunities there will be for our daughters and those who follow. But we also need men. All of this great stuff about women and equality and rights can only come when the men agree and help and support also. I think this isn't just the work of women.
And how do you think that we can help them to agree for this cause?
Well, I'm sure most men, many men, on a one-to-one basis get it and want to help, but the sort of system is structurally set up to suit, I suppose, a patriarchal system, which is historically what we've had in many countries. So I suppose the sort of continued influence and also the evidence base. I think there is now research and evidence that does demonstrate that societies are more equal, that they prosper more when women are involved in the workplace, where women are educated, where women are contributing equally. It benefits the whole of society. And so that becomes, I think, very important for policymakers.
That's so true, because all these things that you pointed out are so they're true, and we couldn't agree with it more. However, as you pointed out, that there's a patriarchal system, there's a lot of misogyny. Changing that is I feel that's a real challenge, because that's something that doesn't happen overnight. You have to really consistently work on that. And unfortunately, as we look at the gender parity gap for 2020, we are seeing, unfortunately, that the gap has kind of widened because we are seeing fewer women in the political arena. We are seeing fewer women in the government. We are seeing fewer women who are bringing in these, who work as policy makers. And, yes, as we are talking about that, one can hope for these things. But, we need to find now the ways to bring these women in the forefront. I mean, I would love you to sort of go back whenever you're back, to pick up from where you left, ideally. and continue.
Yeah, and I think supporting each other and women coming together to have these conversations and to sort of keep up the pressure.
Supporting each other.
Supporting each other, yes.
It's key because I think that one thing that we don't do a lot of times as women is that we don't really go out supporting each other many times. I mean, yes, we are talking about, Women's Day, we are talking about connecting, uniting, standing up for one cause. But at the same time, we do have this issue which I don't think that we can really run away from. That even in workplace environments, we do face challenges from our own gender as well. Yeah.
I mean, people are all individuals, and in some ways, you're often competing with colleagues to get ahead, and I think there are real challenges for employers as well, employing women where we might want to go on maternity leave and come back and all of these kinds of things. To allow that kind of flexibility and be able to get the job done is a challenge. But I think if the evidence is right, if it benefits all of us and everyone in society, if women can be allowed in the workplace and to support the family, and we can work in this flexible way, and indeed it benefits men, because I know plenty of men who would like to spend more time with their families or pursuing other interests outside work if they could work a bit more flexibly. If we believe that it benefits all of us, it's in all of our interest to make it work.
And then you've pointed out something very interesting right now, that you said that men can also pursue something interesting. And this would also, take away the workload. This would create that healthy environment within the home, It would create that work-life balance also. So there's so many positive things that are coming out if women are more involved in the workforce,
Absolutely.
And then not only that they are benefiting from it, I think the men are also benefiting from it. It's creating that healthy balance.
And I think women being economically empowered, we know, again, from the evidence that when women have money within the family context, that benefits the whole family, that they spend it on the family, on the children, and making sure that the next generation are empowered and educated and have those choices. So I think women working and having their own income is incredibly important for them as individuals, but also for the people they're supporting.
And this, unfortunately, is not as well understood in a lot of societies and cultures, because they still struggle to understand that why is it so important for women to be part of the workforce. And you've pointed out some very good factors that if they are part of that, how they're contributing to the home, how are they creating that balance, how they're giving back to their own home and to the society as well. And Ruba, you were telling us a little about yourself, but please can you tell us what you were doing and what you have been doing all this time? You were telling me a little bit about the work that you were doing initially.
Actually, I told you that I used to work a full-time job, and this full-time job used to exceed the timing that I have to stay, For example, I used to leave at 5, but at certain days I have to leave at 7, at 8. So that was a lot of time to spend away from the house, from my little boy and the family. So it was very challenging for me to, try to balance between the house and the work and the working hours. So I think we had to work really hard to try to manage our time.
But you were telling me about your work, and I can understand that, when women start working, they have so much that they're handling and they're looking up.
They have the pressure. They have the pressure as their house, their kids are priority for them, Right. They have the pressure. And also the pressure at work that she has to try to do everything on time to finish the work and that certain time. So she won't take something at home or work late night, This is because it's consuming from her time, her body, her health, So I think having the support, as she mentioned, from the husband, it's really important to share a lot of the house responsibilities, trying to help in raising kids, to have, different, to share things together,
Right. So, thank you so much, all of you, for joining me in today and for discussing, and not just discussing, highlighting giving amazing solutions to this and celebrating this day together. I mean, as women
Yes.
from all kinds of backgrounds and cultures, I mean, it was just, I really had a wonderful day. And I'm sure that all the viewers who've been watching us, they've learned something, they've gathered something. आप तक कोई पैगाम पहुंचा होगा. मुझे पता है कि हमारा मैसेज सारा अंग्रेजी में था, लेकिन I'm sure कि आपने इससे बहुत सारी चीज़ें हासिल की होंगी और सीखा होगा. इसी नोट पे मैं आप लोगों का बहुत शुक्रिया करना चाहूँगी. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. It's really nice.